Good morning and happy Tuesday, and welcome to another edition of Money Truth Moments with our money whisperer herself, Judy Copenbarger. Good morning, Judy. How you doing?
Hi, Carlos. I'm well. How are you doing this fine Tuesday morning?
Hey, I am fantastic. I'm looking forward to our show. I'm looking forward also to wrap up our series on married couples and money. So we've covered quite a bit of ground. Folks, if you're just joining us, thank you for being here this morning. Make sure that you're following Judy at judycopenbarger.com. There is a wealth of information and resources available for you guys on her website, and we'll make sure that we touch on that a little bit later in the show. But let's just get this thing rolling because it's another great topic, and I'm excited to hear and have you share your wisdom. So today's question is going to be talking about, is it good for spouses to have separate cash and bank accounts? That's a big one.
Oh, that is a big one. Yeah. His money, her money, our money, nobody's money. Who's
like mine, right?
That's right. Well, at our house, we have something that has worked for many years. We've been married about 36 years, and we dated many years before that. And what works is what's mine is mine, what's his is mine, and what's ours is mine. And everybody gets along just fine.
Oh, I got to remember that one.
No, I think, it just really depends on the couple. And the most important way to make sure that this whose money is it question doesn't become disharmonious and something to fight or argue about is to just communicate. Just set expectations. If it's not working, whatever you're doing now, you can always course correct and just keep having the conversation. I think with any issues in a marriage or any long-term relationship, you got to have that open dialogue where everybody has a voice and everybody comes to the table with what's working and what's not working, and then just keep fine-tuning that. And if you do that, it'll always work, whether it's money or any other issue. But yeah, it's gotta be an ongoing conversation. So I don't know if I answered your question about should you have separate accounts or not. Did I answer your question or?
You did, and I'm actually glad that you shared a little bit about what you're doing with that too. But let me take this a step further, right? So let's talk about we've kind of done this because we're talking about married couples. We've always touched about those that are looking to get married. What are some best practices, things to talk about? And let's start there. Let's say we have a couple that's looking to get, just got engaged. What are some things? Obviously, love is blind, right? Because you don't think about the actual details of different things and all that. But what are some things in reality that should ground us and we should start really talking about with one another, planning for our future?
Yeah, setting those expectations is a big deal. And, there's so many ways to do it. I've worked with couples over the years, over the decades, where one of the spouses handled all the money and all of the expenses and all the household business, things like that. And the other one didn't know much about it. And then there are couples, it seems like the younger couples now, like under 50-ish couples, they split the roles. So maybe one of them handles all of the expenses and the other one handles the banking and the negotiations with, realtors and things like that. I think if you look for your strengths and each of you are doing what you do really well, you can share that work, but you got to make sure that no ball gets dropped. Well, I thought you did that. Well, I thought you did it. Nobody kept the records. Nobody looked at the bank book, right? So you've got to just maybe make a list of everything that needs to be done and then allocate it to whoever has the strengths or whoever has the least pain in dealing with whatever the issue is if you're both really not enjoying money things. But delegate the authority and delegate the duties that way. I think that can work really well, and just have it just like you would a business. You have a business plan. You're going to do these things. You're going to be in this role. This is your job description. Do the same thing at home. It's amazing how so many people don't treat their household finances as if it were a business, because it really is. It's the business of your family. And sometimes it's very complex and sometimes it's very simple. But if we have clearly defined roles and who's handling what, maybe you could switch. I'll do it for a year and then next year you do it. Because, nobody likes to do it or whatever it is. Maybe hire an expert on the outside to do it. It's not that much money to hire a bookkeeper or to hire an accountant or to hire somebody that can help you manage these things, or hire a teenager to help you set up everything automatically. So your expenses, you never miss it, right? There's so many things that you could do to make it simple. But to do that, you've got to be organized. You've got to come to the table, schedule time together to figure out what it is, where are your pain points with finance, what needs to be done, and now who's going to do it and how.
So also, tell us also where, and I know that this is a little bit more of a deep dive in a conversation, but sometimes you'll get young adults, looking to get married and all that. But let's just say if both of them aren't good with money, right? This is why we also need to be real careful, or maybe reach out for help, right? Who do we contact? Who do we go to? And folks, if you're listening and tuning in, thanks for joining us. And some of these answers can also be found at Judy's website, judycopenbargercom. But let's talk about those folks that really don't know, money, right? Parents didn't really raise them knowing that. Both, and as you're getting married, you don't want to make the same mistakes, or you don't want to make those mistakes. So in there, I know that there is a lot of financial planners out there, but they're not all created equal as well too. So can you talk a little bit about maybe looking into some additional help with that, and things that we should look for, I don't want to say not legit financial planners, because there's some good ones out there, as well as the other side too, like anything else. But in your wisdom, from what you've seen, what are some advice or some things that you can share with folks too?
Yeah, that's a hard question because it's so broad. I think the first thing when you're looking for someone to help you, a fiduciary or a financial consultant or advisor or planner, is to find someone that is in alignment with your values, someone that gets you. They understand if you're very generous or not, if you are very private or not. They kind of get your personality, like your financial personality. You need to have that be a fit. And sometimes everything else might line up, but that fit's not there, and you just don't feel like you want to go to that appointment. It's like they don't get me. You need someone that gets you, and you need someone that you can trust. So it might be someone inside your family. Not that everyone in your family can be trusted,
All right.
because there's some in every family, right? But someone that you really trust, that you know has your back. They're not going to steer you wrong, even if they don't have the technical expertise. Their heart is right. And so now, if you line that up, now someone that you trust has the heart right, and they're aligned with your values and your objectives, then you've got it. So then we look to the technical expertise. There are a lot of people with a lot of titles out in the financial world. There are bankers, and there are realtors, and there are mortgage experts, and there are financial advisors. Advisor is a generic term. It just means they're advising you either for commission or fee. There are financial planners. There are financial strategists. And then there's all the professional, ones, accountants and attorneys, and all these people that help you do these things, CFAs that manage your portfolio to make your money grow. So those are all the people that can help you. But I think when you're looking for someone to help you just get on track and be on track, your best bet, if you don't have someone in the family or a mentor that you can look to, would be to look in a arena of a planner that can look at all the facets of your finance, not just the investments or the insurance they want to sell you or whatever it is. So a CFP is a certified financial planner, and it's the one designation of all the financial advisors or financial consultants that requires that you have a college education and then a substantial amount of education beyond that in specific areas of finance. So a CFP designee has to know something about law and estate planning. They have to know about tax. They have to know about investments. They have to know about the economy, insurance, like all the areas of personal finance are part of that training. And it's pretty robust training. There's a lot of courses and classes. It's a few years to do it after college. So most financial advisors or most people in the financial industry do not have a college education. And it doesn't mean that they're bad or they don't know what they're doing, but I think that's a benchmark that you could look for. I happen to have a CFP, so it's a little self-serving to say that, but I've been for 40 years, been in the arena of people that don't have extra designations and people that do. And there's a big difference in the professionalism and the breadth of service and advice that they can give you. So that might be something to look for if you're looking for help. Another thing to look for is, when you're looking for who do you trust, if you don't have someone in your family or your immediate sphere of influence, a mentor, someone that you really trust, if you hire a fiduciary, by law, a fiduciary must give you the best advice, even if it conflicts with their interest. So they have to put your interest above theirs. Every financial advisor will say they do that. Some do and some don't. They all say that, right? And by law, you're supposed to. But a fiduciary has to prove it on paper. Here are all the options that I gave this client. Here's what we discussed. Here's why this one is best suited for them. And I can back it up with documentation. And there are audits for fiduciaries to make sure that's happening. So the advice is always best for the client. And they usually don't charge more. Most fiduciaries probably have a fee basis where you pay a fee rather than all the commissions and the invisible fees that you pay. So that might be another way to go. A fiduciary, I would avoid for the most part, not that they're all bad. I don't want anybody to take away they're all bad. I would avoid insurance agents for financial advice for the most part, unless they have other designations. I would avoid bankers or financial advisors that work in banks and credit unions. They're generally part of the sales force. And I guess not generally, they specifically are part of the sales force. They work for the bank. They get a paycheck from the bank, and they are there to do what is good for the bank and for the shareholders of the bank. And so they're not always there to do the best for you. They're not hired by you. They're hired by someone else. So it doesn't mean the advice will be bad or it's going to be harmful, but you just always want to tuck away, what is the source of this advice? Is it really best for me? So hopefully those two things will help you kind of filter through when you're looking for outside help. There are also a lot of apps that are great for like budgeting and expenses and things like that. And if you Google, you'll find 100 of them. So you just find one that's got the right level of complexity for you. Some are very simple. Some are very robust, where every day you're for an hour putting in everything that happened financially. And some people like that. They want that accountability. Others just kind of want to ish it. There's dot people and ish people. Some people show up at 8 o'clock on the dot. Other people are 8 o'clock ish, right? And if you're in a couple, if you're in a marriage, one of you is probably dot and one of you is probably ish, and you know who you are.
Right.
So find one that works for you.
I appreciate you sharing that. I know that our topic today is it good for spouses to have separate cash and bank accounts, but that's also something that's very important. I think that especially if you're starting out, especially if you don't know anything about money, where you can find some of that additional help as well too. And speaking of help, let's talk a little bit about JudyCopenbarger.com. Folks, thank you for joining us today. We are talking about, is it good for spouses to have separate cash and bank accounts? We've had a great series on married couples and money, so make sure that you visit some of the previous episodes. There's a wealth of information that Judy's been able to share. So we look forward to you guys tuning in and making sure that you get some of those answers. I also want you to, if you have a moment, to talk about JudyCopenbarger.com. Share with folks what other folks. It's a big secret, and it's free. I'm not just going to tell you that. So, do you want to talk about the website, please, and some of the resources available?
Of course, there's so much good free stuff. So JudyCopenbarger.com. I tell you, we worked for hours, days, months on that name. It's not very original, but it works. JudyCopenbarger.com. That's me, and this is us. And at that website, you will find a lot of cool stuff. There's some articles that can be helpful for you. There's videos there. It'll send you to YouTube, all kinds of videos on every area of finance and estate planning that you can imagine. But when you go to JudyCopenbarger.com, there's also a little green magic button that you can push for the free stuff, and it sends you right to the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program. Money, Truth, and Life. So you can go there, and there are courses on every area of personal finance. The 5 pillars include the protective parts. There's the estate planning, like trusts, wills, entities, corporations, everything you need to know about all that legal stuff. The insurances, and not just life insurance, health insurance. It's auto insurance, tort insurance, umbrella insurance, business insurance. What do you need to know about insurances? What kind do you need? How much? And what's right for you and your family? So all of that's covered. Taxation, that's a big one. There's several classes in the taxation module. It's huge, and you want to know. And it's not just estate tax or income tax. There are a lot of taxes that impact you. How do you mitigate or minimize those taxes? It's all in there, and stories that'll make it relevant for you. And then the growth part, cash flows, cash reserves. What do you do if you have an uneven income? Like you earn commissions. I always think of realtors. Nothing happens for a few weeks and then boom, they get a commission, and then nothing happens and then boom, they get a commission. So what do you do if you have bonuses or commissions and your income is not even? How do you manage all that? And what do you do about investments, the bears and the bulls, mutual funds, stocks, bonds? All of that information is right there in the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program. So JudyCopenbarger.com will help you access that program.
Judy, do you want to mention also about your best-selling book that's out there as well too? Because I think that's huge for a lot of folks to get started on too.
Sure. Why not talk about it? Yeah. Money, Truth, and Life, the book. You can get it anywhere bestsellers are sold. We are on Barnes & Noble. We're on the Target site. We're at Books A Million. Anywhere you can get, oh, there it is. Anywhere you can get great books. Amazon, of course. And on Amazon, you can buy the book. And if you contact me, I'll go ahead and sign one and send it out to you. But if you want a Kindle version, Amazon has that for not very much money. It's just a few bucks, like Starbucks. And so you can go there and get that Kindle version, read it right there on your laptop, on your iPad, on your phone, and get the information you need so you can go and grow. When you know better, you do better. And that's what we want for you. So resource yourself, Money, Truth, and Life.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And again, folks, thank you for joining us this morning. We are talking about, is it good for spouses to have separate cash and bank accounts? So, $1 million question. Bottom line is it good or is it not, right? There's obviously circumstances. And I think what I'd like to know is, and I think our audience would like to know is, you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen great outcomes. You've seen also poor planning taking place. Do you want to share a few examples on first of all, on what you've seen with poor planning, things that can happen if you don't plan correctly?
Yeah. And the short answer to, should couples have their own money? It really comes down to the couple. Some don't want to. One or the other spouses does everything. Others, they each have their own accounts. These days people get married a little later than they used to. So they've already maybe been on their own. They've had their own place. They've managed their own expenses. Now we're merging all that. It's like, really? You're going to tell me what I have to do in my account or not? So sometimes it makes sense for couples to have his account, her account, that you can do whatever you want with. Nobody looks. And then every month put money together for the household expenses. That works really well for some. Others are just like, I don't want to do it. Honey, you do it. And either the husband or the wife does it. And I've had couples over the years where it's both ways, right? Sometimes the husband does everything, sometimes the wife. The problem can be if one spouse doesn't know anything about finances. What's in the 401k? Do we even have it? Where's the savings? What do we spend every month? I don't even know. If you have a spouse that's like that and something happens to the one who's taking care of all of that, we can really have a problem. And sometimes it happens earlier in life than we expect. Somebody has had an accident. Somebody has had, a stroke, a heart attack. A few years ago, we had a gentleman who was hit on his bike, young couple. He was hit on his bike in a coma for almost a year.
Wow.
She knew nothing, no passwords. He handled the finances. What do you do? And she's trying to carry on. Now the income's not there. She's trying to take care of the little kids and deal with him in the hospital for a long time. So what do you do? So it's just thinking about, it's not fun to think about what if, but what if, right? Do we have all of our ducks in a row where somebody could step in and take care of business if we're not here? Does your spouse know enough to know what they need to do or what kind of help they need to do to carry on in the event that you're not able to do what you're doing all the time? So that's one thing. Now, the other side of that is not just, if the terrible thing happens, because it will, we just don't know how soon, right? Or how bad. But I think it's important for a couple, especially a young couple, to have some autonomy in finances. And that's something that, you're coming in with all of your financial beliefs, attitudes, how your dad did it, how your mom did it, what you think about money, the fears you have, all that stuff. You bring all that into this new marriage, try to sort all that out. And money can be the best weapon ever. And I don't like people to use it that way, but you see it happen. I mean, it's such a powerful tool because almost every day we have financial things happen. Money goes in or money goes out. But having some autonomy around that, I think, is important, particularly for one or the other spouse that grew up with very heavy-handed parents. You can't do that. You have to do that. You got to do it this way. Don't do that. You're doing it wrong. And if somebody comes into a marriage with all these issues of, I can't do it. You're not letting me. You're controlling me. You're manipulating me. And now we're going to do that with money. It can be very important to that person. Maybe you're married to one like that, or maybe you are that, right?
Right.
To have autonomy, to have your own account. Maybe there's $100, whatever it is a month that goes in there. Nobody's going to question me about it, bother me about it. I can go golfing. I can go get my nails done. I can give it away. Whatever I want to do, nobody's going to question me or bother me about it. That can be powerful, small exercise for a couple that is having disharmony around money. So that's something that just kind of came to mind that might be helpful. Did that answer your question?
No, absolutely, and I think it's also important that we talked a little bit about it earlier too. But even looking at having two spouses having separate accounts, right? And if God forbid something happens tomorrow or whatever too, did they put the right things in place, right? You talked about wills and trusts. You talked about also, are they even on the account? So what happens to, let's just say you have millions of dollars in that account and the spouse is not even on there? Then what? I mean, these are things that are coming up. And can you briefly just talk about a little bit more about the planning feature when it comes to estate planning as well as a will?
Oh, sure. Like comparing a will to a trust?
Yeah, and also why that's important, for somebody to have, even if you have separate accounts, you're that couple, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, totally important with how everything that you own will pass to your spouse or your children or wherever causes you care about, wherever you want it to go. You can leave that to the court's discretion to do, and they might do it the way you want. They might not. It just depends on how well it was documented. If it's not documented, there's a lot of discretion the court can have. And the court is just somebody in a black robe that you see. If you haven't been to court, it's usually a person, a judge representing the court, and they have different attitudes about money too. They have different attitudes about family and different political beliefs, different faith beliefs, different values. And so if you get one that is not totally in alignment with your beliefs, the outcome might not be what you would have wanted. So many people want to avoid the court's intervention or the court's process. We call that probate when somebody passes away. And for other reasons, people will want to avoid court. Generally, the delays in time, it's a very thorough process, but it's very time consuming. It could be years before your spouse has things freed up or your children have things freed up where they can actually sell a house or use the money. And if you have minor children, that might be a problem. So to avoid court and the costs, there's a lot of costs with the probate system. To avoid that, you can do several things. You can have beneficiary designations. You can have joint tenancy. If you own property together, the other one receives the property without going to court. You can create a trust to avoid probate. A lot of people do that. The problem with a beneficiary or with a joint tenancy is one person has to die before the other one can take charge of the asset. And what happens short of death? We don't all just get hit by a bus, right? Sometimes we linger for a while and there's a competency decline before passing. And it might be weeks, months, or years. And we see this especially in the aged or the folks that have terminal illnesses or long-term illnesses. So what do you do then? Everything's tied up. If you don't have powers of attorney or a trust or a successor trustee that can step in, what do you do? So it's very important to do that. And I don't agree with people that do these cookie cutter documents where they just go online and kind of fill in the blank. It's not going to give you the protection for your family that you think. You need to get a competent estate attorney. That's what they do all day long. If you were going to have brain surgery, you wouldn't go to a general practitioner. You would go to the guy that does brain surgery every day, right? If you broke your leg, you wouldn't want to go to somebody who works on ears. You want to go to somebody, an orthopod, that works on legs all week, every day. So you want to make sure you have an expert in the area that you're going to. And it's true not only for physical things, but for legal things. So get an expert. It wouldn't hurt to find one that will give you a little time, maybe 20, 30 minutes free time, and just say, what do I need? Here's what I have. What do I need to do to make sure I don't have undue delays, court intervention, and costs that I don't need? Yeah. And get a consultation for sure.
I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, we've touched a lot, especially, this whole question about having separate cash accounts and bank accounts, but we don't really think of the bigger picture. It's just the immediate what's in front of us. So I'm glad you really touched on a lot of these key points for folks to just really realize you need to be prepared. That's just the bottom line,
Yeah.
And speaking of prepare, I think it's time for our Money Truth Challenge. All right.
Time for the challenge. Are you ready for the challenge? Here we go.
I got my pen. I got my paper. Let's do this.
Okay, pen and paper. Here we go. Challenge number 1, create a savings goal. We talked about separate accounts, joint accounts, savings accounts. I think most people need to save more money generally. And I would say statistically, very few people save what they should. So do something about this. Create a savings goal. And it might be minimal, $10 a paycheck, $50 a paycheck, something. And then if you're married, have a discussion, have a conversation about that. Is it going to go my account, your account, a joint account? Do we need a separate account? Maybe at a bank that doesn't have a branch in our town. So savings is really savings, and we don't take it out, put it in, take it out. Discuss and come to an agreement of what it's going to be. And then break it down. What if we're going to save $50,000 in the next 20 years, how much do we need to save every paycheck, every month? So maybe twice a month we need to put in $50 each. Twice a month we need to put in $100, $1,000, whatever it is, to get to that goal. Break it down into easy to bite little chunks, like eating an elephant, right? And then do something about it. Come to agreement, set up the account, write down a plan. You can make one of those little charts, where you check it off as you go if you want, but do something intentional every paycheck, at least twice a month between you. Maybe you have different paycheck times. One gets paid on the 1st, 15th, the other one the 10th and the 25th, whatever. But whatever the timing is, get the money going in systematically. Make a process, make a system for it. So it goes in, and it truly is savings. And that can be both of us money. It doesn't have to be just his or hers. It could be both of us money. And that might go a long way toward this autonomy and this working together to bring that family harmony together around money.
You've heard it, folks. That's your Money Truth Challenge. Judy, thanks for all of these wisdom you've shared with us, folks. If you're just joining us, we are at the tail end of our show. Make sure that you watch the beginning of the show. We have discussed, is it good for spouses to have separate cash and bank accounts? And actually, this kind of wraps up our series on married couples and money. So make sure you tune in next week. We've got another great set of series as well for you, and questions and a lot of great answers and wisdom that Judy's going to share every Tuesday morning, folks. Remember, we are here 8 a.m. Judy, any last parting words?
Yeah. If you are part of a couple, make sure you both use your strengths and that you communicate all the time. That will help you.
Awesome. Hey, Judy, have a great day. Thanks again for sharing your wisdom, and I'll see you next week.
My pleasure.